So I wanted to share with you, so these global gatherings are set up. I mean, there's obviously different places where I teach and I do different things, but I wanted to set the global gatherings up so that we could, people could come, once or many times, and that for me, I could just interact and share with you, kind of in the unfoldment of wherever it is that I am and that we are in the Evolutionary Collective, so it's like May, whatever it is, 15th, or what's today? I can't remember. Whatever day it is, that there's that it's sort of freshly happening right now. And I wanted to, I saw a thing, I obviously stay connected to some degree to what's going on in the world and, the various pieces of news. And I was caught by something that Obama, he doesn't say a whole lot these days, but in America, there was something that he shared, and that I kind of want to read that and then go off from there. He shared, there was a quote from him that said, "This election that's coming up on every level is so important because what we're going to be battling is not just a particular individual or political party. What we're fighting against is these long-term trends in which being selfish, being tribal, being divided, and seeing the others as the enemy. It has become a stronger impulse in American life, and by the way, we're seeing that internationally as well. It's like a global, that to me, that's the global pandemic, is this kind of manifestation of our separateness and selfishness and divisiveness, that is obviously a human problem at this point. It doesn't particularly have a whole lot to do with, a governmental thing. And he said it's part of the reason why this response to this global crisis has been so anemic and spotty. It would have been bad even with the best of governments. It has an absolutely chaotic disaster when the mindset is what's in it for me and to the heck with everybody else is a mindset that's been operationalized. So disregard, anything political about this. What it triggered for me more was this view of seeing that even when we have a big crisis, we don't all of a sudden magically become one. We always hope, like, if you had a big enough disaster or something really bad happened, somehow human beings would rise up and gather and somehow get past this place that we never get past. Anybody ever have that feeling like we're just hoping, somehow it gets terrible enough that something triggers, somehow we get past ourselves, we get past a certain way of being human that clearly just doesn't work. And then I started thinking about the golden rule and some of the, and I looked beyond that to, in every single religion, there's some version of the golden rule. There's some version in Buddhism, it says, hurt not others with that which pains yourself. In Judaism, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Hinduism, one should always treat others that they themselves wish to be treated. It goes on and on. Every single religion from thousands of years ago have basically made the point, love your neighbor as yourself. So if we were to assess ourselves as a humanity, how do you think we're doing? Thumbs up or thumbs down on the golden rule? Not good. We all try, we've been trying for 3,000 years, or at least more than 2,000. And, there's something that doesn't happen. And we're seeing it. So there's some disaster that doesn't happen. There's some amount of personal self-effort. I'm sure everybody here and, the people in your lives are not bad people. We're all, to some degree trying. And somehow whatever whatever we're being shown in the current world, in the current paradigm, in the current way in which humanity is constructed. We just can't do it. So I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to share about that and then begin to take some steps. So part of the design, and what I'm going to say is, here's what I'm hoping. I know that what part of what I see and what I say and what in the Evolutionary Collective we've been experimenting and working with is like putting a voice to something that part of you knows, part of you hopes that you know. Like I'm speaking for you. I hope. I hope I can language things that what you go is like, that you recognize, that it's more like an inner recognition. You're like, yeah, like that there's something that begins to be said that, you might wrestle with a little bit, you don't have to agree with, but it should be, I'm going more for resonance. And when you're approaching things in the beginning, when there's a notion of something that's not the current way that the world sees things, it's a little bit heretical. It does challenge the status quo. You get pushback, but it's also, that's where the future comes. That's how it comes. We start to get a download. Something starts to feel different, smell different. Like you kind of go, oh, like somehow that doesn't work anymore. And then sometimes individually you question yourself. You say, well, I'm not being unconditionally loving enough, or I'm not being some which way, but there's something that just won't go away. Like it just doesn't work the same anymore. So that's the kind of conversation we're going to have. I had a really interesting, I have a sort of strange life, but there was a thought leader, who was doing all this work on forgiveness, in a big way, beautiful work on forgiveness. And we had sort of a little bit of a push-pull, and she didn't agree with, she had a problem with, the particular reality that I was bringing forth. And I remember thinking, and I'm from New York, so I have a little bit of a rebellious streak, which is, part of what you have to have if you're helping the future to come into existence. But I remember thinking, when Jesus came up with the idea of forgiveness, that was a big problem. Many people don't realize that forgiveness was radical, like enough to get crucified over. Do you guys realize that? In the time of Jesus, if you sinned, if you didn't do something according to the law, it was either an eye for an eye, and sometimes they would take your eye, or you had to go to the temple and have a lamb killed in order to balance out the sins. Seriously, turning the other cheek and just forgiving people was insane. Seriously, that was absolutely an outrageous beginning concept. The Romans were not forgiving people. The Pharisees were not forgiving people. It was, the law was what mattered. You didn't hang out with women and you didn't do any of those things. That was challenging the entire structure of their reality of, you're born into having wealth, and you didn't violate any of those things. What he was doing was really, really radical. And I didn't say this to her, but I just felt like going, seriously? Forgiveness has been around for 2,000 years. We got that one. There is no end to where evolution is truly wanting to bring us, towards greater and greater divinity, greater and greater potentials and possibility. So anyway, so anyway, I just wanted to say that in the looking at this. So if you look at, so we have this problem, we have this golden rule problem. What I want to point to is that currently, the reality for human beings, the reality that has been true for us since, Carl's here, how many? Thousands and thousands of years, is that we function and our attention is on who we are individually. So if you think of the system of I'm an individual and I'm trying to survive. Can we agree on that? Mostly, like at the bottom of all of this is I'm an individual and I'm, trying to survive, trying to get things done, trying to make sure I have what I need, trying to learn, trying to grow, trying to be unconditionally loving, trying to meditate, trying to take care of my family. So coming from being an individual, that the only thing that we've been paying attention to, and if you look at most of what's available, it's telling you how to be a better individual. How do you be a kinder individual? How do you be a more successful individual? How do you be a more loving individual, right? How do you create a life that you love? How do you live your higher purpose? How do you serve the world? How do I, And part of where we're headed is actually a little bit of what we started with, which is just like 5 minutes of beginning to taste something. There's a quality of consciousness that begins to allow us to not lose the particularity that we all have, but to actually learn how to have awareness and come into something where we literally can begin to feel each other as one. It's a different kind of way of being. So just let that sit for a second. No one said the only way humans would ever be is individual. No one promised that. Single cell creatures eventually became multicellular. And there's a potential in humanity. There's a whole new possibility in that as we learn how to have consciousness that is more connected and porous, that there's a whole new world, like forgiveness, like forgiveness gave a whole new potential to existence. Very different than, only an eye for an eye. There's still a fair amount of that going on too. So I want to just demonstrate. I want to do something, and then we can talk a little bit more about this. But it's a big conversation that we're just starting. Some of you have been around. So this individual, selfish, self-concerned, busy with ourselves way of being, that we all are. It's not bad. It's just what it means to be human. What I call is part of our focus has been on being subjective. So your subjective reality is your inner thoughts, feelings, sensations, body sensations, energies, sense of connection, to oneness by yourself, right? So it's all in this subjective bubble. We walk around and we are inside our own, it's like everybody's in their own car. You're in your car and you're driving around and you're in your own world of self-concern, thoughts, feelings, sensing the world, coming from your own perspective, right? I'm just saying what is just true. It's like, of course, that's true. And we breathe air. You know, you walk into a situation, you know, part of the thing that's always interesting is, you know, you walk into a situation or you're in a relationship, and when you finally really talk about it, you realize they have a completely different experience of that relationship. If you ever gotten divorced, it's kind of fascinating, like where you're like, wow, like what, like, were we in the same marriage? You know, were we in the same business partnership? You know, where their interpretation and their sense of the whole thing is really, really different. That's what we have in courts. You know, different people are reporting on an entirely different perspective of what they saw happen. And we're used to that. We're used to everyone has their own world, their own way of seeing, their own interpretation, and we're paying attention to our world. So that's called subjective. Intersubjective is when you actually pop out of that and you begin to enter into an inner space that's shared, where you're actually in the same world. We did a teeny bit of that, barely. So I want to just do a demonstration to just talk about, you know, kind of demonstrate what I'm talking about. So would somebody be willing to do just a short demonstration with me? You have to be courageous because there's a lot of people here. I'll ask you a question. We'll just like do something. So it's Quanta. I hope I said it right.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you say your name? Quanta?
Quanta. Yeah.
Quanta Jana. Okay.
Yeah.
So now what I'd like is for you to just see me. Can you organize that, Sherry?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what I'd like is put her on speaker view so that everyone can see her. So this time now we want to see her. How beautiful. Okay. All right. So what I'd like you to do first is just close your eyes. All right. And just allow yourself to just tune into what I was talking about, that, you know, your inner world, your subjective world. And when you know, sort of you're just sensing yourself, tell me what you're experiencing.
So in my inner world, there are many people that I am connected to.
Well, what are you experiencing right now?
Right
like
now,
second, yeah.
Right this moment.
What are you aware of right now? Yeah, inside.
Well, I'm aware of the light,
Okay.
and the sound, and the people that are on the screen.
Okay.
And your voice.
Okay, what else?
I'm experiencing a calm. My thoughts are shooting back and forth on like minor details of, well, I agree with some of that and I not that, but it doesn't really matter. So, you know, basically, yeah, I'm going like around like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know.
All right, cool. All right. So now, thank you. So open your eyes. So that was subjective. So you were looking in and down. You know, you were looking inside to sense your body, your thoughts, which you did beautifully. Okay. So now just look at me. I'm going to take my glasses off because I can see you very well. And what I'm going to point you to is a particular place to come from with me. Okay. So there's a thing that I call the origination point. So it's different than just your particular way of knowing yourself. It's further. It's like from your origin. It's even beyond your soul.
Mm.
It's like literally the source of your being.
Mm.
And it comes from home. You know, it comes from real home. Okay. And what I want you to do is look from there and now find mine. So look all the way through to the source. There you go.
Mm.
And you can penetrate all the way through, like be as curious as you want to be about like my source, my home.
Mm.
And just stay there. Like let those two openings like click in, like hold us. Okay. And just stay there. And what are you experiencing now?
I'm experiencing just pure light.
Yeah.
Maybe more like waves of light.
Me too.
I feel like, do I know you? Have I seen your light before?
Uh-huh.
I feel your preciousness. I feel your calm.
Yeah, I can also, so I'll say too, it feels like it's kind of going like this.
Yes, little wavy.
Yeah, it's a little bit like, but it's sort of a happy wavy.
Yes.
You know, it's a little bit like
kind of like a dance. Kind of like a dance wavy. Kind of like maybe this is what we do.
Yeah.
When we take off our garments and connect.
Yeah.
And that there's no.
Stay with me. So you just went a little more subjective for a moment. Stay with me. Go all the way. Wait, just don't say anything yet for a second. Okay. Go all the way. Go all the way. Don't leave me. What are you experiencing right now? Don't leave.
It's kind of like a nothingness.
Yeah. Yeah, now there's like a almost like a penetrating curiosity and silence and light and light.
Light.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for doing that with me.
I feel like you moved me. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. You moved me. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's beautiful to connect with you. Okay, so go back to gallery. On. I have to go back to gallery. Okay. Yeah, so Sherry, you can put it back unpinned. So that was just like a little bit. Now my sense of Quanta, she's very not only attuned, but very easily can moves, you know, like I would imagine a lot of people here can move their consciousness around. But you can sense there's a slight difference between the inner and then all of a sudden we were in the same space together. It was in her perspective and my perspective. If you can sense that, we were like, we're still pretty together. Can keep feeling her. Yeah, did you want to say something? Go ahead. Go ahead.
I really liked what you just said about how that feeling of being together, but it's beyond words. Absolutely. You can't even really explain it. There's no words. We don't have enough words to encompass that. And it is almost an absence of everything else.
Yeah. And then a discovery. It's like from there, then we're like, oh, you know, there's a kind of, instead of like it's a discovery inside myself, like if I'm meditating, it's a discovery together that opens up a very different space. And that's the beginning, you know, like that's the beginning of, as a humanity, you know, like having our consciousness be literally connected in a real way with each other, not just me to her or her to me. You know, you can't, like, I can't just be clueless and like in my own world, and she's tuned into me. There are people in this room that know how to do that. You know how to read somebody else or be inside sort of intuitively and know where they are. That's not what I mean. That's not in shared unity together. When that begins, when we begin to be able to enter into that more like reliably and in certain ways, something else opens, like the future has access to us, like something multidimensionally starts to happen. It's not just that we have this lovely relatedness. It's like from that place, our beingness or our conscious, something starts to download and something else starts to become possible. If that makes sense. And then, I assert from that level, the golden rule and some of those things won't be necessary. If we really were inside together with each other, like connected from like another place other than my personal selfish, individual moving around, kind of thing, like this other possibility, it's just different. You can't just treat each other like objects. And what's loudest is not the differences. It's not the loudest thing. It's not like I can't tell, she's another woman, she has a different color skin, she looks beautiful. It's kind of like, yeah, there are differences, but that isn't the loudest part. Our age or, like those are more superficial layers of who we are. That isn't my identity. That's not her identity. It's not your identity. There's a deeper connection. There's a deeper place where you're kind of like, ooh. And you don't have to tell yourself, you actually experience it. Does that make sense? That oneness that we actually have access to starts to lift us into a different place and gives us a different access to what's pulling us into the future.